Hey, good evening, everyone. T-Rob here with the Biz Pulse. Um, Another exciting night for you here on the Biz Pulse. So I wanted to tell you real quick, I appreciate you guys subscribing, liking the channel, sharing videos. We're starting to grow, and I appreciate the following. But I've got Brandon Cockrell tonight with me, that is the founder of Linchpin Sales. And we're going to talk about visibility and success without having a huge budget and really an online presence. So he's going to kind of educate us on how we go about doing that. But I don't want to talk all about Brandon. I'd rather just bring him in here and let him introduce himself and talk to us about it. Hey, Brandon, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me on, man. Excited to dive in.
Yeah, man. So tell me about, like, who's Brandon?
Good question. Sometimes I wonder the same thing. Yeah. So look, I'm just a guy. I got two kids, 5 and a 9-year-old. Beautiful, wonderful wife who happens to work in the business with myself, and for the last 7 years have been really focused on growing a digital agency. It really didn't start off that way. It was really more based around whenever I started this business, and but prior to that was a little over a decade in sales for in the corporate world. I mean, a common story you hear with a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Mine came after we had our first child, our daughter, and really kind of opened my eyes up to really focus and think about what I really wanted. And I knew that I wanted something different. I kind of felt held back in the corporate world. So I quit kind of on a whim, and started this business. And it kind of morphed into, it was always about finding the opportunity for, at the time, really focusing on small businesses, local based businesses at that time. And I just knew that there was a lot of struggle whenever it came to getting real results, whenever it came to marketing and sales. And so that's always been the focus. Digital was just the vehicle that allowed the most opportunity, and still is, obviously, but that's how it kind of morphed into the digital world. And here we are today.
Oh, very cool, man. So talk to me about, I mean, I was reading on your kind of your bio here, and I mean, you were with Wells Fargo and in the PGA Tour. So what did you learn? Like, I mean, obviously those are huge corporations. What did you learn that you brought into your business?
A lot. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, so Wells Fargo was right out the gates,
Okay.
right out of school. And that's really where I cut my teeth with the inside sales world. That's where I started. I was really trying to offer people opportunities to consolidate debt and all of that. And so it got me in the world of sales. It got me into that process and introduced me to that. Eventually, I moved from South Carolina down to Atlanta, which is where we're located, with the home mortgage division, where I was working straight commission. And so that allowed me to kind of figure that whole world out, where I didn't have the
Yeah.
base salary to fall back on. And really, I had to figure out how to generate my own opportunities at that point. I remember, and I tell this story a pretty good bit, but I remember making calls because back then social really wasn't around. This was like in '07.
Hmm.
And so I think the iPhone was just being released at that moment, but you had the, BlackBerry around that time. But other than that, everybody still had home phones, right? And you didn't have the ability to reach out through social media and text and all of that. And email obviously was a part of it, but really wasn't what it is today. So
Hmm.
literally, I would get a stack of papers that just had somebody's name, the mortgage company they were with, and a phone number. And I had to figure out, okay, if I'm going to get them at their home phone, I had to do it while they were at home and not at work, obviously, because they didn't
Yeah.
have a mobile device. So I would have to call them while they're at the dinner table and get information and try to get them to trust me enough to get an application with a lot of information and personal information. I don't know how I was able to do it, but man, it was a learning experience like none other. And then over the years, got the opportunity to work with the PGA Tour. And that is one where I was over the sales and marketing department over a specific property. PGA Tour has a lot of different divisions. and I was responsible for millions of dollars worth of a budget, making sure I retained that. So retention was a big piece. I had to come up with programs and campaigns. Had to do a lot of marketing, specifically local marketing and networking,
Hmm.
to build that up and create that community type feel and just be out and about. And so it taught me a lot about business being in that role for the 6 years I was there, because I was having to wear a lot of hats. I was having to manage as well. So there was a lot that I was able to take away from that. And you mix that with just the hardcore sales, of cold calling and all that. And it just, all of it transitioned into the business world that I started.
Oh, very cool, man. So I come from a mortgage background too, so I'm really familiar with what you said. I mean, I remember getting those sheets and just be like, all right, let's make calls, like, and trying to get people to do an
What a
application. So,
world, man! I mean,
oh
whenever
man,
you look back on that, what a world we were living in that time. I mean,
yeah,
the stuff we would get, it was
what's
crazy.
funny, Brandon, is I almost think it was easier then.
I don't, there's sometimes whenever I look back and I don't disagree with you. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so much noise out there now. I mean, it's just,
yeah,
it is, and obviously people have gotten a lot more, um, you know, I guess they think a lot more about giving even just a little bit of information away, where back then, just in the late 2000s, I mean, you could call and get a lot of, people weren't that scared, I
right,
guess,
right.
if that's the best word I can use. They didn't have that fear factor, so it was just, yeah, I definitely can see that.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me about your business. Is it Linchpin Sales, right? So,
Correct.
I mean, you talked about it earlier, the digital marketing, but tell me, like, what's an ideal client for you guys, and what do you do with them?
So we've kind of got two parts now. We've got the agency side, which is really what I have focused on. My wife was able to come on full time on the
Oh,
agency
nice.
side, as well. She was actually in digital several years before she came on to work with me. Obviously, I was able to build the business enough to support both. And she's kind of taken on the agency side where we primarily focus with e-commerce brands
Okay.
now. So that's the core of the agency, um, division of the business, so to speak, and what we focused on for the first 6 years or so. And then most recently, I've been kind of stepping out, really focusing on more of the coaching consulting side whenever it comes to digital. There's just so much noise out there, and there's not
Yeah.
a lot of businesses, specifically local based businesses and people that are kind of in that mid tier, where they need help and they need support whenever it comes to all this. But it doesn't really make sense to do the full agency side, but they're kind of past the YouTube trainings. And they
Mm-hmm.
really need, before they go in and spending and investing, they need a champion that can help them create strategies and come up with what they need to be doing and focusing on, instead of just throwing money at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so that's becoming a big part. I've got a signature program coming out for that, and just really looking to make a bigger impact by doing that and offering that service, and obviously offering some other things along the way.
Yeah, very cool, man. So, what is something that you run into? Because you talked about coaching, I do coaching as well. So I'm always curious that, I mean, when you're coaching clients, are you seeing the same issue a lot of times? Like, what is that one issue that you see that, like, every time you probably have to have a conversation on, or is there anything like that?
Well, I mean, there's a ton, but there's a lot of common ones. I think the biggest one that I have to really touch upon is the content side is a big piece, and what type of content really is going to move the needle, and why it's important, and not necessarily why it's important to the business owner or the marketing manager and all that, but why it's important to the consumer and what the consumer expects and what they want to see. And I think that that's what gets lost in the mix. I mean, obviously, there's so much noise out there, but it's really honing in, focusing in on that content, and then just getting them to overcome that roadblock that's in front of them from just starting to create good content that lets people in a little bit behind the scenes. So, that's definitely a big part. And then just the overall strategy, like what are we trying to accomplish? And then making it as simple as possible in order to accomplish that. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, everything comes back to the same strategy and what we want to get out of it. Now, the way you get there is going to be a little bit different for everybody.
Right.
And those expectations need to be set, but it's really coming up with that full kind of A to Z strategy and then reverse engineering it back to figure out how we get there. So, but yeah, the content piece is always a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know it's, I've had to do that before as well, Brandon, where you just pretty much have to tell people like, we need to start over with your branding.
Yeah,
Because and one thing that I deal with a lot, 'cause I deal with a lot of younger, business people that are just really starting out, and they want all these leads, Brandon. They want like, hey, give me 10,000 leads, but they don't have the infrastructure to take them. And I'm sure you run into that a lot in the e-commerce world. It's like, okay, that's great, but how are you going to fulfill this, or how are you, I mean, how do you approach that?
well, so the e-commerce space, and one of the reasons why, because I have such a passion because of my sales background and all that, and the world that I came from. Like I see social media and I see all this opportunity, and I see the opportunity for somebody just to give me their name and email address, so I don't have to go out there and find them and cold call them. And it's like, it's like gold to me, and I,
Right.
I love it. I mean, you can't throw me a bad lead. But and then you start working with clients, and whenever you say everybody wants leads, everybody thinks they're prepared to get those leads coming into them. And
Hmm.
what I've realized over the years, and that's why I've kind of stepped aside and started this new kind of coaching, consulting, helping people make that transition, is that there's a misstep, in my opinion, when people build their business, especially early on. You kind of almost look at the funnel, and it's almost reverse. Whenever you start off, with your database, you start off with the people that are closest, and then you convert them to wanting to do business and allowing you the opportunity to help them. Then that builds trust and credibility, and then you start attracting new opportunities coming in because word of mouth, maybe they refer you to somebody. Now you've got the framework, but they automatically want to jump to the other side of the funnel and just start funneling more leads down. But
Yeah.
they're used to just dealing with warm and hot leads, right? And you've got to make the transition where you put the systems in place, you put the processes in place, you have a good sales process that actually is ready to convert cold leads. Because I think a lot of people just believe that if somebody is providing and giving them their information, that they're already warmed up, right? And they're not. Just because
Yeah.
they just are saying, yeah, I just kind of want to know a little bit more, but I'm not sold on your business, and I don't know anything really about you yet, and I just want to make sure that this is something that I feel good about. And that's kind of missed, I've seen, and that's why now with this side, I'm focusing a lot more on the solopreneur, on the local based businesses and businesses in general that are struggling on the sales side. E-commerce as well, obviously. I mean, they want more sales, but they don't have the inventory. They don't have, the operations down to even
Right.
take in the business. And all it's going to do, if you don't have that down, if you don't have the foundational pieces in place, as all marketing and advertising and going out and putting your brand out there, all it's going to do is expose that. And you don't
Yeah.
want that either. So,
Yeah.
it's really making sure we build that out and think that through before we start pouring gasoline on the fire.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. So we titled the show the visibility and success with no big budget, or really online presence. So I want to talk to you about that on you know talk to me about it, on how people can maybe gain some visibility without throwing a bunch of money at things, which I know people do. Is there a strategy that you have there, or maybe some guidance that you can give people?
100%. Focus on your database. Focused on, or if you want to refer to it as a list, I really don't care. I wish I could go back to the start of my business. Is one area that I missed, and had to basically play catch up with it. get people into your database so you have direct communication with them. And basically how you go about doing that is, one, you just got to, it's kind of my digital selling strategy that I look at doing. But first, we just got to create an offer that speaks to your ideal audience and something that they may want to know. And that may take a few tweaks that you may want to figure that out. But you come up with an offer that makes people go, yeah, I want to know more about that. Sometimes it's the best information you can give right out the gate that says, here's how to make, and this kind of sounds cheesy and shiny, and it's not something I would probably do, but just for the sake of trying to give an example,
Sure.
Here's how to make $1 million in the next 6 weeks, right? And a lot of people, if that's your audience you're going after, they're going to go, I kind of want to see what's behind the curtain. So all you've got to do is, one, you come up with that offer. Great. We've got a good offer. The next step is you just got to find the vehicle for that offer. Is it a video? Is it just a piece? Is it a graphic? Is it a piece of copy or a blog that you send them to that kind of sells them on that? Then once you have that down and that graphic, obviously then you got to find the way to drive that vehicle. So is that Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? And all this stuff you can do organically. With the right offer, you can put stuff out there organically and people are going to opt in, because all you're trying to do, once you've got those 3 components, the next one is you just got to be able to exchange their contact information for what it is that you are offering them. So whatever, it's a download, it's a video series, it's an email series, whatever. And then once you get that contact information, now you've got them in your database. They are interested in what it is you have to offer. Now you can market to them directly through email, through text, through phone calls even, if you want to. But you can market to them as much as you want and have direct line of communication to nurture them and stay in front of them. And it's essentially free to do that. And that is what I always say, especially right out the gate, is those 5 steps, and that's your strategy, and that's what you focus. Just focus on getting people and building up your database. Then you can market to them as much as you want. Obviously, you don't want to do it in a way that's annoying. You want to do it in a way that sells your story and talks about ways you can help them. And that is what I always recommend. You can do that with no budget, or if you want to throw $5 or $10 a day behind, the offer on a Facebook ad, that's even better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great advice. I mean, I think in today's world, and we talked about it kind of earlier about the mortgage life back then, there's so many shiny objects, right? You can just throw money at. And I think a lot of people don't understand things, and they just like, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And before too long, they've tripled their marketing budget and they don't have anything to show for it. So I like how you address that and how simple because data is everything, right? I mean, if you don't have a database in today's world, you're probably struggling. I mean, that the truth be told. I mean, it's
100%. Yeah, and you probably have seen it with once iOS 14 hit, the clients that had a strong database, plus they were, obviously, and this is a little bit bigger budgets, but they allowed us to take them multi-channel and become a little more omnipresent and weren't just solely focused on one platform. But the main thing, if they had a database, I mean, we just kept moving along. Obviously, we weren't able to track back just based off the platforms. There's tools you can utilize, but it's huge. That is the biggest, and that's what I try to stress. And I stress it because I didn't do it. I know the hard way.
Me too.
and I've seen it the hard way, but I've also seen it how it works for me now. I've seen how it works for clients. I've seen it for several years, and it's the one common denominator. And if it is the biggest asset to your business, and you've got to start focusing on that as soon as you can, especially if you're just starting off. But even too, if you're looking one day, if you're e-commerce and you want to start getting in, you're looking at wholesale or getting in, obviously distribution, all that stuff, they're going to want to know, what do you have and what have you been doing on your own? What can you do on your own? And if you're able to go there with a database where and you've got it segmented and you are able to tap into that anytime you need to generate revenue, it's going to allow you to have a lot more negotiating power and buying power as well. Or if you just want to sell your business one day,
Yeah.
If you have a database filled with people who already know, like, and trust you, that look, you buy this data, they're going to be more interested in that database than anything else most of the time. So that's why I always stress it. It is the backbone, it's the foundation to every business in the day and age we live in now. And that's why I always stress that. And you can build it up
Hmm.
so inexpensively that it's a no-brainer to start there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's great advice, man. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, what's one thing in your business right now that you didn't expect? Like, I know you've been in it for a while. I mean, I think you've been doing your 12 years now or something, but is there something like, wow, I never knew I was going to have to deal with that? Or
um,
maybe there's a bunch of them.
yeah, I mean, there's stuff that you hear, obviously, and I think to a large part, there's something to me that I have to, like, I just walk right into the edge of the cliff and walk right off, and somehow I just land into uh, these these situations and things that happen, only to go through them, and obviously you come out stronger every single time. But um, everything from being just randomly sued to for no reason. Really, that's a whole nother story. But just not knowing and thinking you've got everything from an insurance standpoint, that
Hmm.
then you go in, you start looking at it and realizing, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't include this, that doesn't include that. And you learn that the hard way, and then you're out 50, 60, $70,000 for no reason, just to fight. Stuff like that, just the
Yeah.
ups and the downs, the roller coaster rides. Um, those Some of those you can't really predict. You hear stories, but you're never really expecting it until it slaps you in the face, and
Hmm.
then you go, oh, okay, this is real, and then you got to just deal with it and compartmentalize and keep moving forward. And so every employee things that come up, and what you deal with there, that you're just like, how did you miss it? Just so there's just so many. I mean, there's so many things that you just really don't envision or imagine
Yeah.
that pop up, and you have no other choice but to deal with it and figure it out. And you know, you come out 10 times stronger with a whole different skill set each time, but it does suck going through them in the moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm glad you spoke to that, because I think people, people that want to maybe become an entrepreneur or get in business, they see all the, like, oh, that, look, this guy owns a business, he's driving a nice car, he's got a nice house. They don't necessarily know what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I like that you spoke to that some on, all these weird things that come at you when you're a business owner that you never have thought about, right? So thanks
Yeah.
for bringing that up,
It's
because I
hard. I mean, it's
it,
hard, and which is
it
one reason I changed my podcast name to Business is Hard. You know,
yeah,
that
oh
that's
yeah,
I think people get a lot of it's just a lot of noise and misconception out there whenever it comes to actually building a business and a brand. And
yeah,
it's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people are just kind of happy doing some stuff on their own. But I've kind of got big goals to want to change the course of my family tree, and have something for my kids and their kids, and build something that's long term. And whenever you're looking at doing that and trying to accomplish that, you're going to hit rough patches. And it's all I can tell you, it's all about mindset, and the way that the outlook that you have on what's happening. And that is not easy. It takes work, it takes practice,
hmm,
but it is something that you'll want to focus on to get you through once you start getting 2, 3 years into it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So maybe this, you'd probably just answer this question, but what's your most important lesson you've learned over your career? Is there something that stands out?
Um, well, a little bit, yeah. Obviously, the mindset. Whenever I thought it was just all, hearsay, people talking about, oh, you gotta have a mindset, you gotta have this outlook, you gotta be. I just thought it was all woo woo, didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. Until I actually started focusing because I literally was running out of choices. I was stressed to the max. And I was like, I got to do something. I got to do something about this. Tapped into a mentor a couple of years ago, and it made the world of difference. I mean, just like walking through and talking through and how to have perspective and how to view things um, and so that was a big moment. I think the biggest one that I always go back to as well, and um, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started working with a personal trainer. And I
Mm-hmm.
never really, I would dabble in some working out, and I was a college athlete and all that, but I kind of let my weight get away from me post college. And I really put an emphasis on it and said, I know that working out on my own, I don't do it as hard as I should. And I cannot stress just whenever we talk about mindset, the physical side of stuff, how big of an impact that has on your mentality
Oh yeah.
and just your mood and just your energy and your confidence and how big the mind, yes, having that's important, but also the physical side down with it. And once you get those two kind of on board, it it's something that unless you do it, you're not going to realize. You're not going to be able to justify it. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what I stress those two things more than anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's good you said that because I mean, wellness is a huge thing. I mean, I think what LeBron spends $1 million a year just on wellness, right? I mean, obviously his body and everything, but I mean, high end business owners, entrepreneurs, they spend a lot of money on wellness, and there's a reason for that. I mean, like both here and physical, right? I mean, it's such a grind. I mean, you have to keep up your body because your mind goes with it, and vice versa. So,
Well,
um,
without health, there's no wealth. There's
right?
nothing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
and you know, it took me a little while to kind of figure that out, but I'm glad I did. I wish I would have done that a lot sooner as well. But that's one thing I stress all the time is just talking about how big of a difference it makes.
Yeah. Would you say that that's, I always try to share like a favorite productivity hack. Would you say that's probably yours is just, staying fit? I mean, staying in that space?
Yeah, no, you know, it's definitely one of them. You know,
Hmm.
obviously, whenever you go out and I learned that I need somebody to help me whenever it comes into the gym.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm waking up and I do that, and I go ahead and get that win out of the way, it just sets me up and puts me in a better mindset
Yeah.
because I can tell you most of the time whenever I'm waking up, still to this day. Um, there's days that I don't feel like doing anything. Like I just want to give up. I want to quit.
Yeah.
I've got that kind of pit in my stomach, you know, like waking up and it's not like what's going to go wrong today, and that kind of releases that, and it just allows me to think a little bit more clearly. I'm able to get back on path. It kind of knocks that out, and that's something obviously you continue to work on. Not sure if it ever goes away, according to some entrepreneurs and mentors that I follow, but it gets better from what I understand. But yeah, that and just staying committed to, you know, if you put something like this is my one thing is just if you tell yourself you're going to do something and start something and you commit to starting it, commit to finishing it.
Hmm.
And that may be a small little project, that may be creating content, that may be just writing an email, that may be, you know, doing sales calls, that may be doing something with your team,
Right.
but having just finishing whatever it is that you're saying you're starting. So many times I see uh, professionals, entrepreneurs, executives that I talk to, and they start stuff, they don't finish it. And the key is just to finish it, even if you don't like it or you're not sure you're doing it correctly. Just get to the end line and then learn from it if you didn't do it the way you wanted. But just get in the habit of finishing um, is something that I kind of always am telling myself.
Yeah.
I think that that's helped.
Yeah. I would say, it's funny you say that because I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we're creative, right? We have the mindset of we're creating all these new ideas. And I know I struggle with the what you just talked about. Man, I can come up with the best ideas and get things started, but finishing in them is, I've always struggled with that. So I'm glad that you touched on that. And I would say, my fix is bringing good people in around you that can help you with your weaknesses.
Oh,
because
100%.
because
Yeah.
I mean, most businesses that fail, especially small business, they hire people that are exactly like the owner, and I mean, like, you're not getting anything any different. And so, yeah,
Yeah. Well, and finishing it doesn't mean that you finish it by yourself.
right.
Finishing it is holding your team accountable. Finishing it is holding your partners accountable. And being on both sides or whatever. Because one thing you were just talking about there was they bring in partners that are just like them. But speaking on the partners, whenever you go and you hire or maybe you outsource somebody to
Hmm.
fill a gap, whenever it comes to your business, whether that's marketing, whether that's finances, legal, whatever it is, operations, being able to understand that it's a partnership and being committed to that partnership in order to get what you're trying to get out of it in its fullest capacity. And that's one big thing that I have seen just over the years, and I've been guilty of it as well, is not going in. If I hire somebody to do something, being committed enough to giving them everything they need in order to do what it is I hired them to do as well. So, being committed to helping your partners that you're hiring to do the job, being committed to give them everything they need and be there and invested enough to at least get them to a point to where they don't need you anymore in order to get the ball and keep the ball rolling. So,
Yeah.
um, just something that whenever you said partner, it kind of popped in my head. But that's something too that people don't realize is that you're hiring somebody, but you're hiring them to help you, but they still need your help. And you need to be somewhat invested and committed to that partnership, at least to get it over the hump. And then
Hmm.
most of the time they're able to take it from there. But a lot of especially smaller businesses and solopreneurs, they they stopped way short before it even had a shot to do what they wanted it to do.
Yeah, for sure. So, talking to Brandon Cockrell right now with Linchpin Sales. Make sure you go over to linchpinsales.com and check out what he's got going on, and um, digital marketing, coaching, all kinds of stuff going on there. So, and you've been doing this for, is it 12 years now that you've had this going on? Is that right?
So it's 7 years that I've had the business,
Okay.
and I started my business. But before that, I mean, I was practically with the PJ Tour doing a lot of the same stuff from sales, marketing, operations, and revenue growth. And so I kind of tacked that on to about 12 years of direct experience and expertise in this space and revenue growth and marketing and sales um, but yeah, the business itself is 7 years.
Very cool. Very cool. So I always ask this because we have a lot of people that are kind of like trying to find their careers too that watch us. So I'm just curious of what you would tell someone that's maybe looking to jump into to being an entrepreneur or owning their own business. What what kind of mindset or traits do they have to have, or anything that you would want to share?
Oof, that's a big one. Um, I think starting out, so whenever I started, I was very naive. And I knew because of my sales background that I could go out, I could cold call, I could network and drum up business. Little did I know um, what all was going to come with that and I didn't know what I didn't know.
Hmm.
And looking back on that, I'm not sure if it was good or bad that I was that naive, but I think with the right strategy. So the big thing that I would focus on is I would keep it so simple. If you've got an idea, if you've got a passion, if you've got a skill set, I would focus on and say, this is the one problem I'm going to solve, and exactly how I'm going to solve it, and make it so easy and repeatable. And I would make sure that I had a very clear and defined audience that I was talking to. So I have something that's easy to implement, something that I know I'm going to be able to replicate, something that I know is going to provide value, and an audience that I know exactly how to talk to them and relate and speak to them and make the message very clear. That's going to save you so many years. So as you grow, you're going to be able to expand and do other things. But the earlier and the sooner that you can concentrate and that you can have a very clear direction and keep it as simple as possible, the easier it's going to be to build and place the blocks on top of it as you look to grow and as you look to hire. And you're not going to have a lot of the bottlenecks that a lot of businesses do, like I have had several times in the 7 years of growing this business. I've had many 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it all goes back to not having that clear, defined, and systematic process. And so that's one area I'd focus on. The other thing is just knowing how to be resourceful, knowing how to leverage partnerships and relationships, especially early on, and to give more than you get, especially early on as you're getting started. Understand your value. You're not worth anything to a lot of businesses out there. Feel free to do things for free to get your foot in the door, get case studies. I did this early on. It was the best decision I made. Do it for free, get in exchange for testimonial, in exchange for a case study, in exchange for results, work through your bottlenecks, and be willing to do that. And then last is just don't quit. Like I said, if you get into it, you put your mind to it, you're committed to it, just don't quit. No matter what happens, just keep going and knowing that on the side of your adversities that's where the gold lies. I can promise you, I've been through it, and I've been through the worst stuff in my short 7 years of growing a business. And I can tell you the best is on the other side of uncomfortable, and just keeping that in mind, always keeping that in the back of your mind of, I know this, it feels a lot of stress and anxiety, and I know I may even feel a little uncomfortable with it, but that usually means that the best is right on the other side of that. And I can't stress that enough.
Yeah. Great. I mean, perfect. I would just want to like end it now. You just gave everybody the little golden ticket there. I mean, because I think what happens is, and you right at the end there, you talked about it, like you're in this dark forest, right? And you give up when you don't know that it's right around the corner is just green grass and what you're pushing for. So I love that. I love that you said don't give up, because I think that's a tough one, because people I think they open the doors and business is just going to walk through the doors, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't happen that way. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe for some people, but it's never happened for me. I've always had to work hard and grind and have systems and do the correct things like you
100%.
talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tap into mentors like yourself, coaches like yourself that can help you see through the forest and through the trees a little bit, because they've been through it. But I have learned over the years that whenever I'm feeling my most uncomfortable and like I shouldn't do something,
Yeah.
I have learned that that's typically that's what I need to do the most.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's great advice, man. So, any books that you recommend that you say, oh man, this
Well,
is
I mean, I'm a big stickler for Linchpin, the book by Seth Godin, and obviously that was a big part of the name Linchpin
mm-hmm.
Sales and all that. So Linchpin is a fantastic book. I think Hormozzi's book, 100, the 100, I think it's $100 million offers
Yeah.
that he's written. I mean, obviously that guy's phenomenal, and I read a lot and follow a lot of Andy Frisella, who's First Forum, sorry, and Patrick Bet-David, and they've got a lot of good books out there as well that I would highly recommend. And I think Grant Cardone's 10X is 100% guaranteed read for sure, especially if you're looking at starting and you're just kind of starting off.
Yeah, for sure. Great, man. That was a great, all that's great info. So I always ask this question. Sometimes people don't have anything, but is there a question that you wish I would ask you during this that you were prepared for? Like, well, why didn't he talk to me about that?
No. I think, this has been a great conversation. There's nothing out there. I mean, I always just want to provide value. right?
Yeah.
And I just want your audience to get something out of the conversation. And I have no interest in pitching or doing anything like that. If I can help out, obviously, reach out, DM me, hook up with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, any of the social media channels. But no, I mean, I can't really think of anything.
Okay. Well, then I guess I did my job, man.
You
So
did great. No, I love it,
cool,
man.
cool. Yeah, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate you coming on, and I do have all your contact info in the description of the video. If anybody wants to reach out, make sure you do so. And Brandon, I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you got kids and family, so I'm gonna let you go. But appreciate you being on the Biz Pulse, man. It means a lot, and look forward to having you back on down the road.
Hey, man, thank you so much. This has been great. Sincerely enjoyed it. An honor to be here.
All right, take care, Brandon.
All
We'll
right, you
talk
too.
later.
Bye.
Oh, that was Brandon Cockrell. And he dropped a lot of knowledge on us, which very helpful. Just little tidbits, and I like that from people that are in the middle of business and entrepreneurs that are grinding and working and have learned that that they learn things and they share it with people that are trying to learn, right? Because if you quit learning, people, you're dying. And I always tell people that, like, you have to continue to learn. You have to keep your mind open and look at the situations you're in and learn from them, because if you don't, then you're dying, right? So anyway, I'll quit my preaching. I'll move on. But thank you guys for tuning in to the Biz Pulse. Please like, share, do all that fun stuff. And I will see you Thursday night, same time, same place. And take care. And thank you for tuning in.